What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin today, BTC USD. It's the 16th day of January, and here we are sitting at about $94,500 with roughly 8 hours and 20 minutes left in the day. Hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. Let's get into it, okay? Let's talk about this here. We're consolidating right now. We're pulling back. Yes, we're consolidating. Right after we just got done consolidating. Yes, we just broke out 2 days ago. I still believe everything that I've said over the last few days is that, if you take this month and a half of consolidation here, I doubt that after 2 days it's done. It could be a fake out. It's possible, and we'll go over that, I suppose. If it were to be a fake out, we'd look for a day to probably close below about 94K. If we get below there, that's different. If we close below 94K, though, I would be a bit intimidated that this could be a fake out, and maybe we do come back down to about 91K or just below there. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think what's happening now is a very common procedure, which is when you break out of a zone, you break out, you pull back to that point of resistance, that breakout point, you find support there, and then you carry on with your bad self, right? Let's see if we can find an example of that here. I mean, just as an example here, right? You've got support. You've been holding this as support for quite some time. You finally broke out. What did you do? First thing, the day after you broke out, you consolidated, pulled back to that breakout point, and then things really kicked off, but to the bad side, right? Let's see here. In a sense, and this did work. Whenever we broke out of this range here, we broke out, we pulled back and found support at the breakout zone. Now we did continue, but just barely. It's not the exact. This isn't the speed of which I expect us to pull back and then bounce from, but still the point being validated there again, just showing that whenever you break out, it is very common to do this exact thing that we're doing now. And that's all I think we're doing is back testing prior resistance as support. We'll probably consolidate here for the next couple of days, maybe even for the next week or half week. I would assume at some point next week we do see prices above 100K. We were looking for that this week, but I think with the events that have taken place over the past 24 hours, with the little pullback we saw, I think now we're just going to consolidate. It is Friday, and Fridays can be exciting, but typically once the stock market closes, from Friday through like the end of Saturday, it's pretty boring. So I don't expect that. We got 8 hours, 20 minutes left here. The stock market closes in in about 6 hours. I don't expect that. So most of this day we'll still have the stock market. I don't expect that we'll be too far away from here. And wherever we close, even if we do get a pump today, let's say we're at 97K by the end of today. Come Monday, we're probably not going to be too far away from there. So one way or another, whether it's on the lower ends here or it's on the higher ends here or we're right in the middle, whatever, somewhere in this zone, that's where we're going to be likely for the next 3 to 4 days or more. Consolidate, do our thing, and then pump higher, okay? When we do pump higher, the expectation is entirely that we will go to about $106,000 to $110,000, somewhere in that range. And this is becoming increasingly more and more obvious, right? Back here, I had the theory, somewhere around here, is probably like on the 11th or the 10th, I don't remember. I had the theory that we would not find resistance here, where we found support before, I had the theory we wouldn't find resistance there. That's also where the 50-week moving average is. It's like right at that level. Or no, is it a little bit lower? Let's actually put that on there. Hold on real quick. Moving average, simple moving average. We want the 50. Okay, no, yeah, it's at 101. For some reason I thought 91, but it's at 101. That's what it is. Okay. So it's like right there. That's the 50-week. 50-week moving average right there. Prior areas of support. All kinds of sense to be made why we might find resistance there, right? All kinds of reasons that make sense for that. But back here, somewhere around this time, I theorized that we wouldn't stop there because at this point it became too obvious. It became too obvious that we would find resistance at prior support right here like we did before. And I theorized from that moment on that we would actually push through this zone and go up to our golden ratio zone somewhere around 106 to 110K. Fast forward, from this point all the way out here, this is back in December, and here we are a month later. Now, we've broken out. We haven't technically interacted with the zone. We just missed it. I mean, you can see here if we delete this, you can see here we just missed that zone. Maybe that's good enough for some people. I mean, hey, we hit that level there. Maybe this is good enough for some people to freak out on, and maybe it's worth freaking out on. I don't think it is. I think, we've got the 50-day moving average is curving up. We've got it sloping up. We broke above it after finding resistance on it several times, and now we're finding support on it. I don't think this is a bad thing. The last time that we were sloping up and we found support, we went to all-time highs at that moment. I don't think that we're going to reject here and go down is all I'm trying to say. And beyond that, what I am also trying to say is that being that we're right here, would it make sense that if and when we continue higher, that we just broke out of this 1.5 month consolidation phase, we even back tested for support, would it make sense that this is all we get? Like, it doesn't seem appropriate. I feel like a move like this is more warranted for what we're doing here, right? What I'm trying to get to overall is just the fact that we've pulled up this high so far and now we're consolidating here. I doubt that we're just going to do this, find resistance in this zone, and then that's it. I think that it's only becoming more substantiated as time goes on. If you're paying attention, that we would likely pull up to something around 106 to 110K. Looking at the short-term stuff, looking at the 1 hour time frame, and then zooming out from there, we'll just leave the moving average on there. Screw it, whatever. See if we notice any respect on the 50. It seems that there's some respect there, not a whole lot. Maybe the 40 on the 1 hour. What would it be? The 48 maybe for 2 days, because 48 hours is 2 days. I don't know. Looking like you're breaking down, picking up a little bit of volume. So yes, that's appropriate, but the amount of volume is decreasing. It's increasing from the relative consolidation phase. This move hasn't ended yet. Let's not judge it too far. Let's not judge it too hard yet, because you could keep dropping and the volume could keep rising. But I'm not really intimidated by this, right? It just seems like standard procedure stuff. And then of course we take this, we put that low right there, and you're right at prior areas of resistance. I'm very confident that we find support here. This is not a head and shoulders pattern. That's not what this is. If anybody's calling it a head and shoulders, they're wrong. I don't know what it is. It's just a correction. It's not an ABC. I mean, it could be, but I don't think it is. I don't know. 1 hour RSI looks bearish, but lower lows, lower highs. You're in the oversold zone. This is the point at which we probably expect you break. A break of this trend does not mean the price goes off to the moon. Let me show you. Right? Lower highs, lower lows here. We broke the trend right here. Let's see if the price went to the moon. I hope it didn't, because if it did, see, so the price recovered, but it came back down to these lows, right? And this was actually on a Thursday. It was pretty close to the same time of the week, right? Imagine you broke out, whatever, but then it's Saturday. You don't really have much going for you. Even if we didn't pull back and we just moved sideways here, we didn't really go too far away from the lows there. All I'm trying to say is a break of this doesn't immediately mean we move up. You didn't probably start to move up until you got into these overbought areas here, right? And look at that. Look at how boring and sideways you were here, right? Whenever you broke out of your downtrend. You broke out of your downtrend here, right, on Thursday. When did you start moving? You started moving here on Sunday. And really, I mean, technically, you're at the same highs that you were. You didn't really start moving until Tuesday, the next Tuesday. You broke out of it on this Thursday. You didn't break out of it until, you didn't start moving higher until next Tuesday. All I'm trying to say is, throughout all this time, from the time you broke out of your downtrend until here, you didn't really start seeing any life. And I mean, really here, that's whenever you started getting productive. So we've broken out. We haven't broken out of this downtrend yet. You can see we're in this downtrend, but we are oversold. Maybe we move up and then we move back down, we get some bullish divergence, whatever. Maybe we move down a little bit more, but I would assume we're very, very near the low, if not at the low right now. But that doesn't mean when we break out of this, that doesn't mean that we're just off to the races. We have to wait, we have to build, maybe get an uptrend going like we had back here, higher lows and higher highs. And once we get overbought, once we get into that zone, that's when we can start getting excited for movement again, which, the way that I'm drawing it here, in an ideal situation, maybe this is what happens. It could be Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday, that we start moving higher again. But sometime next week, we should start to see some excitement come back in for Bitcoin. I just don't think that it's going to be today or tomorrow, because Saturdays are typically pretty boring. Stochastics are bearish. MACD is picking up bearish momentum, bearish. 4-hour time frame, if we're looking at that. The MACD is bullish overall, but you can afford to pull back a little bit. The stochastics have reset entirely, telling me that we're probably not going to move too far lower. The RSI looks bullish overall as well, but again, you can afford to go lower and still maintain that bullish look. I mean, if we look at this for what it is, you typically have been finding support right around the 40 and even a little bit below there. So you're above it now. If the price goes a little bit below 94K, my feelings aren't going to be hurt. But we don't want to close below 94K. Okay, we don't want the day to close below there. Daily time frame. Isn't it funny? I think it's hilarious when this happens, because what we had was bearish divergence, right? We had bearish divergence on the 13th. Imagine all the people who went short because we had bearish divergence on the 13th, and we had a slightly higher high. And every time we've had a slightly higher high since November, that's been the point to sell. We had a slightly higher high, and we had overbought bearish divergence on the RSI on the daily time frame. Imagine how many people went short here. Then we pumped. and then everybody's thinking we're going to break above 100K. We got rid of the bearish divergence. There's no more bearish divergence anymore. We got a higher high, and as soon as we did that, as soon as we got rid of the bearish signal, that's when we actually got bearish. It's hilarious, man. Bitcoin is being more honest with its price action by not just getting a slightly higher high and selling off. It's actually continuing, but it's still being tricky. It's still being deceitful. Classic Bitcoin shenanigans. Bearish divergence, though, on the stochastic still. Bearish divergence on the daily MACD. That would technically call for a move down to about 93.8K, which, again, is totally acceptable. I just don't want to see us close below this level or too much below. I said 94K. I suppose this is the level that I wouldn't want to see a day close below. We can wick below here. We just don't want to see a day close below here. And that's probably what we'll get, is a wick below that level there. Looking at the daily MACD, I mean, bearish divergence aside, this is a pretty bullish daily MACD. The stochastics are bullish. The RSI is bullish overall. So I do expect more to come from this. I don't think that this is a relative high. I don't think this is a lower high in our bear market scenario here. I don't think that's what it is. I very much do believe that we move higher. I mean, again, a lot of people use these moving averages. How I've seen people in my 10 years of doing technical analysis, a lot of people use these lines as support resistance zones. So if they're up here, they're not considering anything else other than the fact that, okay, so right there, there's support if I need it. Right there, there's support. If they're down here, okay, here's some resistance if we come up to it. Here's some resistance. You know, that's all they think about. But the lines themselves have more than just levels of significance to them, right? They have their own behavior. These moving averages, right? They slope down, they slope up. They slope down, they slope up. And that simple focal point, that shift in the slope, if we look at this, whenever you slope up here, whenever you finally slope down here, whenever you finally start to slope down here, finally start to slope up, I mean, really, you sloped down probably more appropriately here, but you started to slow down here. I mean, it's very obvious compared to this, to where you were here, you started to slow down, right? Here, you started to slow down too, but then you picked up the pace. Here is really that point where you turned around, right? And then here's the point where you turned around here. I mean, if you look at all these points, was this the exact high? No. But if you sold there, you probably did well. Was this the exact low? No. But if you bought there, you probably did well. Was this the exact high? No. But if you sold there, you're not upset now. Was this the exact low? No. That's the exact low. But if you bought around here, hint, hint, you're probably going to be okay. Probably. There are moments where the slope changes, and it doesn't bode well for you, and it doesn't work out. Indicators of all varieties are less effective when you're moving sideways and you're choppy. They are. Nevertheless, we've got a slope up here on the 50-day moving average. I don't assume... And we found support on it, by the way, and we got nice support off of it. I don't assume that this is something to be taken lightly, and I do very much believe we're going to move higher. I'm thinking somewhere probably closer to 107 to 108K, but the technical target range is 106 to 110. That's all I got. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. Here's a counter argument to my bullish stuff, right? The weekly 50-week moving average has moved down. It's actually got a focal point here at the top that's moved down. That's typically not a good thing. But it's not, again, nothing's 100%, nothing's perfect. We've had moments where that's happened and we did not go into bear market, right? We moved up afterwards. We've had moments where that's happened and it did call for a bear market. But to be fair, we were already kind of well underway at that point. Anyways, I digress. Hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.